Welcome back for another go of the 200 challenge, which is, yes, a really ridiculous name in all aspects, especially considering that we are up at 287 kilos so far. This time around, it is the beginning of the end, and we're gonna start assembly of the car, hoping that this guy will get down on the ground as soon as we possibly can. We're gonna look at uprights, we're gonna look at brakes, we're gonna look at discs, Centerlock, a few of those things, and we see where we get. And before we get into today's episode, let's cover a little bit what I have been up to since last time. So I promised all of you guys that I would never paint a car again in my garage. And that is exactly what I've been up to since last time. So I've painted the whole underside, the engine bay, up until this area here with this. This is a protective paint called Raptor. You spray on a thin layer of this and it gives you a little bit of a rough surface that is very, very hard. So I've taken that up until this level here because this area is going to see some oil, it's going to see some gasoline, some a little bit more abuse. Engine bay under the car. And I especially wanted to take care of the underside of the car with this at this point because that means when I install the subframe, I actually don't have to take it off. And this can very, very soon become a rolling chassis. And with that, let's get into the subframe. Okay, so I wanted to cover a little bit about subframe before we put it back up under the car. Porsche did a few really cool things with this one, knowing that they had narrow body cars and wide body cars. And they actually built that with exactly the same components. Looking at this one, we have a transverse piece here. It's this one here. This one typically holds the steering rack, and I'm not going to cover the steering rack today because I have a new one coming in and it's not here yet. Then we have the longditudinals, that are these pieces that hold the lower control arms, and then you have the wheel carriers or the uprights out here. Porsche, they were really clever when they did this. Actually, what they did was they managed to put two different mounting locations into the subframe so that you could move these out. So there's actually two different mounting locations here. There's, as you can see here, two different mounting locations here. This now on this side is actually narrow body because I haven't moved it out. This one on this is now set for the setting you need for a wide body. And as I would mount this in the car, I would use this hole rather than that hole. And that's how you change from a narrow body to a wide body. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just finish off this subframe. I'm not completely happy with how it looks. And really my goal with this is just putting it back together, see that everything fits. I'm going to do a few test drives with the car in a few months. So I'm going to ride with it in this manner. Then when I have a little bit more time, this is going to go apart and I'm going to do some really fancy upgrades with that. Moving on to the next step, we have the uprights, which is where the wheel carrier sits in. It's where you connect to the sway bar, all these good stuff, right? This one on the 964 is made out of cast steel. It is incredibly heavy. And Porsche did something about this at the 993. They changed to a cast aluminum upright, which is a good deal lighter and looks a good deal slicker as well. In my build, I eventually will make my own of these, and that's something that I have a design for already, and I'm validating that, and we'll see how that turns out in the end. In the meantime, I need to get my car running, so I'm going to use these, the 993 uprights, which are really nice pieces. I'm going to put those in here and build up the car based on that. As Porsche developed the 993, they did quite a few things with the suspension. One of the things they did was they moved this whole thing out so that they got a wider track width of the car. And as you move from the 964 uprights to any kind of aftermarket uprights, the 993 Evo uprights, which is a really nice alternative, or just the standard 993 uprights, you have to keep one thing in mind, and that is that this point on the upright is further out to give a little bit wider track width. That typically means that you need to change these. These are the 964 ones, these are the 993 ones. And as I put one exactly over the mounting holes of the other one, I will see that here there's about this much of a difference on the actual mounting points of the lower control arm. And on this side, I see that it's a little bit more. So they did a few things at Porsche with this one. They're clever guys, obviously. And like any good cooking show, I had already prepared this and I already mounted this with the 993 ones. So let's move on to the upright. Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun with the uprights and picking our Centerlock system. Because I have a little bit of a passion for this with Centerlocks. Definitely not because I'm in a hurry of changing tires, because I really am not. I would like them to last as long as possible to ease the pain on my wallet. I like Centerlock because it looks really cool, and I like the technical concept of it and the simplicity that it brings with it. So let's look at a few different Centerlock systems. First concept is the traditional one. I'm using just a little bit of a dummy bearing here that I printed just for the sake of not just destroying bearings as I show this. This is the original 993 wheel carrier. The concept of this one is that it works in tandem with the ABS ring like this, and there's a bolt through that pushes these two together, and that gives you the right amount of pressure onto your split taper bearing here, so that it gives you the right kind of clearance in the bearing. The concept within a traditional Centerlock system is that you take the bolt that goes through and you replace the nut on the bolt with a nut that looks like this, and this one then extends with another bolt on the other side, and that bolt is what you can use to hook up your wheel to. So this is how it ends up. Okay, so you have your wheel carrier there, you have a little bit of an extra bolt here in the middle, then you change these lug nuts, you change those to essentially small little spikes. Then as you have your Centerlock wheel, you see you have all of these holes here, and when you come into the pit and you want to change tires really, really quickly, then you will automatically and very, very quickly find one of these, and this goes on there, and you have changed tires. It's really, really quick. This is a popular version of the Centerlock system with just changing the nut to this kind of nut bolt here. I'm not completely fond of this system because it feels like it's not engineered from beginning to end, and I think I deserve and I would like to get something that is really engineered from beginning to end. And here is then another alternative. This is an RSR 997 RSR hub that has, as you can see, a completely different concept. The holes here where you otherwise would bolt your wheel to, those are much smaller. It's got, as you can see, a completely different shape to it, and it has this big little snout coming out here in the middle. This is a completely different concept, and you know what? It does fit in the same wheel bearing as a 993. So this looks a little bit too easy to be true, that I can just change this and be good with it. And the reality is, it is too good to be true. Because when you look at this side, you see that this one sticks out of the bearing. It will not fit together with the ABS ring, so you can clamp it. I looked at a few different alternatives, maybe shave off a C4 front shaft and push that one in there, or a rear shaft or something like that. Haven't found one. So another good alternative is to just put this up in a lathe, turn it, and take it off so that it looks exactly like that. And why is that important, that it looks exactly the same as this? Well, really, this connection here and this piece here, it is tailored for this carrier or this upright, and I would like the ABS ring to be in exactly the same spot as here, and I haven't really found a different way of really getting it in the same spot. I could make a new one of these. I could chop off a shaft or something like that, but I would struggle with getting this really to jive together. And doing this kind of cut here, just taking off a few millimeters on this one, does nothing to the strength of this one, because really the area that is crucial is up here, and you do have a validated concept doing it like this. So let's turn it, let's cut it. And here we are, and I got myself a little bit of workshop time. So the goal with this little endeavor here is to cut this little thing there so that it looks exactly as it does on the 993 one. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this into lathe. I'm gonna balance it and make sure that it's perfectly aligned. Then I'm gonna use this tool and just cut it off a bit, and we see how that looks. We go. They are now exactly the same. This wasn't very difficult. I don't get very much opportunities to use any of this kind of machines in my daily life, but it seems like I still remember how to do it, so that's cool. Let's take this one, go back to the garage, put it back into the car, and we see how that looks. And we are back home. Right now we're in my auxiliary little man cave, which is a small little space that I have next to the garage. And this is where I have some of my toys, some of my tools. I have my 3D printer in there in the corner. And what we're gonna do here now is we're gonna put these two together. And to our help, we have my newest family member, a 20-ton press, which is one of the most fun tools ever to work with. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with pressing the bearing into the upright. I have frozen the bearing so that it sits out there in my freezer. It's not necessary when you do it in a press to do that. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stack up the height here so that this one is ready. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on it. I'm gonna go get the bearing, push it in. And as you can see, it's really easy when you have one of these. I had frozen the bearing beforehand so that it contracts a little bit. Not necessary when you do it with one of these. You have to be very careful though, because you're very strong with one of these presses. If it sticks for whatever reason, stop, figure out why, and then go from there. Next step now is to push in the wheel hub into the upright. I haven't frozen this one. It's gonna work out really well anyway. So I'm gonna reconfigure this one so that I get the right stack height and push it in. One very important thing as I do this is I need to support this one in the right place. I need to support on this ring here, the inner ring. Otherwise, as I push this one in, I'm gonna break the bearing, and that's not very cool. So let me figure out how to do that, and we press it in. It looks really good, and I think we managed to do this without breaking anything. Of course, it's not pre-tension now. The bolt that you sometimes have to squeeze these together, it's not in the middle, so you can feel a little bit of clearance, and that is because it's not pre-tension. So that is the next step, putting that in. So upright with wheel hub is together. Let's make sure we assemble also the ABS ring, which pushes on the bearing on one side, and then has a nut on the other side. Okay, so this one is supposed to be torqued to a very high number. I think it's 460 Newton meters. I don't know how much that is in foot-pounds, but it's quite a lot. So I don't have a torque wrench that is that big here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten this a little bit arbitrarily, less than what it needs to be tightened. And at a later point, I'm going to come back and fix this once I have those tools. So tighten it up. There we go. Uprights are on, and time for the next step, which is the anti-roll bar. So this is the one I used to have on my 964. As you can see, this one is now too narrow because I have moved this ones out, and I also used the 993 longitudinals, and they are just a little bit wider. This contact point is a few millimeters to the side there. So let's take another one. Okay, here's another one. This one is from a 993, and as you can see, this also doesn't work. And this really beats me, because I was under the impression that the 993s, they had the configuration on all 993s where they had these longitudinals, of course, they had the outer hole for this, and then this sway bar on all of them. And apparently that doesn't seem to be accurate at all, because this one is about that much too narrow all over. So I need to do a little bit of research here, because it looks like I don't have a sway bar that will actually work here. What I figured out is that the 993 has a little bit of a different concept on how it achieves the different widths. In the 964 you have the inner bolts, or the inner holes, and you have double or triple holes actually in the body of the car, so you can put these here and you can put them there, right? The 993 has these that are slightly wider, that I thought needed to go in combination with the 993 uprights to get the right camber and get the right feel there. It looks like when you take the 993 longitudinals and put them in the outer holes like you would on a 964 RSR or 964 Turbo, it just looks like it gets too wide. So that doesn't work. It also looks like the way that they achieved this with the 993 was actually that they were still in the inner holes, but what they had done was they had these ones with a little bit more offset in themselves. So I probably have to change these back to the 964 ones. So I bought these in vain. Anyone need any? And just go for the outer ones, and then I need to buy a new one of these that is for the 964 Turbo. And while my brain is thinking about whether or not I need to change out some of the parts or not, I'm going to put this thing up and have a look at it, because I need to look at a little bit of the other aspects in regards of the uprights, the brakes, and so on. So let's put this back up. So it's starting to come together. Subframe is on, and we're starting to see how this is actually going to look. And it's, yeah, I think this is going to be good. I don't have my new shocks here yet. This is my old shocks, H&R Club Sport. They're pretty good. I'm going to have something really crazy on my car as soon as they're made available. This here is the old top plates, because I sold off my camber plates. Porsche was pretty smart when they designed their top plates, because as the subframe, or the lower control arm and the upright, moves out, so does actually the shock mount on the top. So they built this one with symmetry or asymmetry, where if it's narrow body, it sits like this. If it's wide body, it sits like this. So I'm going to assemble this as if it was a wide body, because it is a wide body. Okay, so there we have it. It sits in place. I can see that with this, these top plates, these are the original top plates, right? They don't have any camber adjustment. So when I look at the car, it looks like I have just a little bit of camber, but very, very little. So yeah, first look at it. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Okay, let's have a look at the next piece, being the brakes. So my theme, performance, weight, all of these things. I also have some regulations that I need to adhere to. So this car is going to get registered as a modified vehicle, and to qualify as a modified vehicle you need to fulfill certain things. Making a very long story very, very short, it means to me that I need to put very, very big brakes on it to qualify for this. If you want to hear more about this, contact me and I'll tell you what the reason for these regulations is. So looking at the original setup that I had the 996 twin turbo big red equivalents, really nice system, really good calipers, going together with a 330 millimeter disc, which is incredibly heavy. For me to meet the regulations, I need to have 380 millimeter discs, which I will still house within an 18-inch rim, which is really cool. And they come with really, really nice, shiny looking calipers. This brake system is from a Porsche 991 Cup, and it is really performance oriented. It's actually very lightweight as well. So it has an inner bell made of aluminum, and then it has a floating disc on the outside that is made out of steel. So the disc will actually follow the caliper since the caliper is fixed. So this one also is really fantastic. Just look at this. They've had a lot of fun when they have designed this one. It's got some really cool things as well. It's got knockback pistons, meaning that the pistons will not give you this vibration as you're halfway through a corner. So some of you are going to say, this guy is insane. I'm never going to watch this show again. Some of you are going to say, that's pretty cool. He's bought himself like iron wheels because these are big enough to be my wheels. I don't know, which one are you? Write me a comment on what you think about this. I think it looks a little bit insane. I have to say that. Let's put a wheel on and see how that looks. Okay, pit stop, let's change wheels. I can still see the gap in there. This is 18-inch 997 Cup rims, which is what I intended to use. Let's see what I end up using in the end. 18-inch, same as the 991 Cup has. I will have to tailor the rims later on so that I get exactly the right kind of distribution on the two sides, exactly right for what I'm going to do with this car and the tires that I'm going to have. But all in all, I think this is pretty cool. Let's put a caliper on. So a little bit more work I have with the adapter. I just printed an adapter right now. I'll make something cool out of that one in the end. I'm missing the pads. I'll have a pair from a good friend coming down so that I can see just that something fits here. But all in all, I think this is pretty cool. And unfortunately, I did find one thing, and that is that this particular version of the BBS centers, this one, the one that they have on the 997 Cup, actually it doesn't work with this caliper or with these brake belts. So I need to get a version that is called E88. That one has a much more protruding piece here. They're also lighter than this one. Some really fantastic support from BBS helping me to understand which one I should use there. And now that we've gotten this far, there is a little piece that we can't forget. Yes, scoring time, here we are. Starting with the uprights, the original 964 cast steel uprights, where I have to add the bolt and the ABS ring, since that is installed in the other one, weighing in at 9 kilos. And then we have the runner-up, complete with ABS ring installed, weighing in at 5 kilos. So 4 kilos difference per side, meaning 8 kilos just on the uprights and the wheel hub. Then for the brakes. Okay, one big red 330 millimeter disc weighing in at 10.5 kilos. It's quite a beast. One 380 millimeter split floating disc weighing in at 8.9. So 10.5 to 8.9, that's 1.6 kilos times 2, meaning 3 kilos just on the discs. And then for the Chinese stuff, the calipers. One set of big red Porsche 996 twin turbo weighing in at 3.2 kilos. One set of golden delicious 991 cup calipers weighing in at 3.2. It's exactly the same. So these super fancy golden delicious, they weigh exactly the same as these. So not bad. So what have we got? We found 8 kilos in unsprung mass. 4 here, 4 over there. Unsprung mass, that is the portion that moves with the track. And the lighter this is, the higher the ability for the shock absorber and the suspension to really follow the track, and it gives you more grip. So really critical. We found another 3 kilos of rotating unsprung mass, which helps you with acceleration, cornering, really a lot of different things, and really beneficial. So 11 kilos in total, taking us up to 298 kilos. And this is a really good time to ask you for something. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Your feedback means a lot to me, and it helps me going and do more of these crazy things. Initially, I set the challenge to 200 kilos, thinking this is going to be difficult. Then I found 200 kilos. And then I set the challenge to 300 kilos, which now is going to be really easy to get to because I have tons of ideas left. Now I'm going to set a new challenge, and that is that the car is going to weigh this much once it's done. Let's see if that's even possible. But at least I'm putting a challenge out there that will be so difficult to achieve that, yeah. Let's see. Other challenges from today is, of course, figuring out exactly what suspension and subframe parts I'm going to use. I did reconfigure this one so that it's now the 964 turbo setup. So I need to see if that will work. I'll figure that out and show you what I did in some other episode. Of course, have to make sure that whatever I do here, that I get a correct scrub radius, so that I don't end up with something strange where the car will not be stable because this pivot point is not in the right space. So that's really critical. All in all though, this is everything for today, and I'll see you next time.